Hey guys, welcome to HipHughes History. I got my Johnny Cash on because we're going to walk the line on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. We're not going to go a million layers under here, guys. We're just going to skip the rock across the water so you can get the basic idea, get kind of a neutral layout, and then you can decide what you want to think for yourself, or do some more reading and research, and definitely leave it in the comments below. So giddy up for the learning. Here it comes. The beginning of time. You certainly could start in the beginning of the time, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to briefly state that prior to World War I, the Ottoman Empire controlled this area. This is the Holy Land, right? This is Jerusalem. This is where the three major religions intercross, and they're being controlled by the Ottoman Turks for 400 years. And you basically have a lot of Muslim Arabs that live in this land that don't like the Ottomans controlling them. And in the late 1800s, there's really a rise of nationalism around the world. Not only pan-Arab nationalism, which is seeking to get rid of the Ottomans so they can control this land for themselves, but also Jewish nationalism, which is called Zionism, where Jews are seeking some type of political state where they can, go live. There you go. How about that? So you do have Jews that are migrating to the Holy Land in the late 1800s, and there's some small acts of violence between the majority Arab population and the minority Jewish population. In 1892, the Ottoman Empire banned the sale of land to Jews to try to kind of quell that problem a little bit. But really, by 1914, because of Zionism, you have about 60,000 Jews that are living in this Holy Land that are still a big minority surrounded by Arabs, controlled by Ottoman Turks. And then World War I occurs, and of course the Ottomans pick the wrong side, the Central Powers, and they get their butt kicked, kind of. And at the end of World War I, instead of really letting the Arabs self-determinize themselves, rather now the British Empire is going to march in and control that with a British mandate. And even though the British mandate included supporting the Jewish state, this was in the Balfour Declaration, they didn't create a Jewish state just yet. But even stating that as an objective was kind of like a dog whistle, for Jews around the world that are now facing anti-Semitism in Europe and anti-Semitism in Russia, which is Europe, and are migrating to this British-mandated land, which is the Holy Land. You have about 100,000 Jews that are going to move there at the end of World War I. Now, between World War I and World War II, you really have the British controlling this area with a growing Jewish population and a lot of Arabs that are getting nervous. Muhammad Amin al-Husseini, which was kind of the leader of the Arab movement during that time period, really starts to radicalize themselves because they don't want no Jewish homeland, and they see a lot of Jews moving into their backyard, and they know that the British supports the idea because of the Balfour Declaration. In 1937, the British, anticipating this kind of problem which is festering, put out something called the Peel Commission, which is going to support a two-state solution, that there should be two countries, one for the Arabs and one for the Jews, and then bang, bang, World War II. So during World War II, the Palestinian, the Arab movement under Amin al-Husseini supported Hitler. Husseini even met with Hitler, and they really planned on, once Hitler got his operations done in Europe, getting rid of the Jews in the land of Palestine. But of course that didn't occur. And not to mention, there's also, extreme Jews at that time period. I believe the King David Hotel was bombed at the end of World War II in 1948 by a Jewish resistance movement. And during World War II, 70,000 Jews illegally immigrated to this land under the British mandate, so the Arabs certainly are kind of getting a little nervous. In 1948, the United Nations votes 33-13, with 10 countries abstaining, to create a Jewish state and an Arab state. It's two states that were created by the UN resolution. Just the Arab state is never really materialized. And that's because as soon as the state of Israel was created, like the second it was created, 4 Arab nations, Lebanon, Syria, Egypt, and Jordan, were like, attack! It's the 1948 war, and they got their bums kicked. And there's two big ideas here. Number one, I said ideas. Two big ideas. One of them is the huge amount of refugees that were created by the 1948 war. 700,000, 800,000 Palestinians Arab Muslims that lived in this land got up and moved for a while with the idea of coming back. They've never been able to come back, and no other countries have been really accepting them as citizens. So there are hundreds of thousands, millions now of Palestinian refugees, sometimes third, fourth generation. I think one of the big ideas in the 1948 war is the changing of the map. If you look at the map, this is the United Nations map that was created for the two-state. You can see how much land Israel has and how much land is marked off for the Arabs. After the 1948 war, though, you can see that Israel has expanded its borders big time. From 1950 to 1967, you have kind of a growing Palestinian movement of anger and violence that is attacking Israel, and Israel is attacking back, and there's massacres on both sides. We don't want you to just think that the Arabs are massacring the Jews. The Jews are also sometimes massacring the Arabs. You could say it's self-defense, you could say it's not, but either way, there's enough blame to go around to say that it's a bloody mess. In 1964, you get the formation of the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, which sets its mission to set up a Palestinian state and to give these refugees a right of return and to get rid of Israel. That's kind of their main plan. So let's get to 1967 because bang, bang, something's going to occur. It's going to take 6 days, less than a week war. So following the 1948 war, during this time period, it was Arab nations, Egypt, which controlled the land known as the Gaza Strip, and Jordan controlled the land known as the West Bank. And these Arab nations hadn't made peace with Israel, so they're still supporting attacks from these lands into Israel. And by 1967, Israel believes they're on the kind of the preface of an invasion. So what do? They attack first. This is the 6-Day War, 1967, and bang, bang, Israel's going to take more land. And if you look at the map, you can see the borders change. This is the 1948 map. 1967. Israel has gone way beyond its borders from the United Nations mandated Israel country that was formed in 1948. Not only that, but they're not going to let Arab nations control the Gaza Strip and the West Bank anymore. They're going to control and occupy that land, a full occupation from 1967 to 1994. And during that time period, there's hundreds of thousands of Palestinians that are expelled from their homes, and there's also a huge increase in the amount of Jewish settlements that are going into Arab-controlled, Palestinian-controlled land. In 1968, that group, the PLO, is going to start to grow, and they're going to elect their first big leader, Yasser Arafat. Yasser Arafat was immediately expelled, first to Lebanon, caused some problems there, then to Jordan, caused some problems there. Eventually, I believe, Tunisia took Yasser Arafat, and during the 1970s, Yasser Arafat and the PLO waged a war of terrorism on Jews. They attacked airliners. They attacked the 1972 Munich Olympics. They attacked boats. They pretty much did anything they could to draw attention, even negative attention, to their plight of not having a homeland. And of course, Israel, every time it's attacked, is going to grow 10 feet stronger and 10 feet bigger. Not only with the aid of United Nations foreign aid, we give more money to Israel than I believe any country in the world in terms of military aid, but they're also going to really develop a pretty hard line. A pretty hard line, sometimes it's called mowing the grass, where they're basically going to say, look, we can't get rid of all this terrorism, we can't get rid of all the terrorists, so every once in a while we'll just go in, we'll mow the grass. We'll kill a whole bunch of them, and then we'll wait till they grow back and we'll kill some more of them. Of course, this has a terrible effect. It has the effect of growing the grass probably even faster. So let's kind of speed this up a little bit. In the 1980s, we have the first Intifada, which is kind of a holy crusade, a radical movement of getting Palestinians to fight Israel, to sometimes throw rocks at tanks in the 1980s. We don't want to forget, in 1978, we do have the Camp David Accords. This is Egypt, which is sealing a deal with Israel, where they're going to share their border, and Egypt's going to formula recognize Israel, and really Israel's not going to have a problem with Egypt anymore, but they are going to have a problem with these Palestinians and this resistance. The Intifada goes from 1987 to 1993. In 1993, you get the Oslo Agreement, where Israel basically says, look, if we can get peace, we'll support a Palestinian state. And the Palestinians say, we'll support Israel. And there's kind of this moment in 1993 where I think there's some real hope that we finally can seal a deal and get two countries up and running. The big stumbling points are the return of the refugees, the Israeli settlements that have been developing throughout the last 20 years, and who's going to control Jerusalem. Remember, Jerusalem was supposed to be an international city. Israel is not going to give up the power to control Jerusalem, and I believe the Palestinians aren't going to give up until they control at least East Jerusalem. But nevertheless, we're going to get to the kind of current situation. If we fast forward, we have to fast forward, we can say that a big thing occurred around 2006. In 2006, the Palestinians had their own elections. And because of those elections, the more radical group known as Hamas, who, unlike Fatah, the group that made these deals with Israel. And when you think about it, look at all the deals and all the agreements. Play the music, maestro. You can see all these agreements that Fatah and Israel kind of tried to put together for nothing. The Palestinians didn't get any more land back, and Israel certainly didn't get more peace. So maybe because of that, maybe because of the continued failure of the Palestinian Authority, not to mention that Yasser Arafat had died and there was a lot of kind of investigation into the kind of financial corruption that was going on in Fatah, the people of Palestine, the people, the refugees, voted for Hamas. Hamas was always better with social services, with helping the poor, and I think their hardline stance at Israel was something that was attractive to a lot of these refugees that really want to do something to get their land, and if it means war, it means war. So in 2006, Hamas was elected. There was a civil war between Fatah and Hamas, and basically at the end of the day, we're almost there. The West Bank was controlled by the more moderate Fatah, but the Gaza Strip, the southern part here, is controlled by the radical group Hamas that wants no business dealing with Israel whatsoever. They won't even recognize the right to exist, and they certainly have supported hundreds, if not thousands, of rocket attacks into Israel. And Israel, now 3 times, has had these operations to go into the Gaza Strip and to belt down on them, to mow the grass, to close the tunnels. Hamas digs tunnels that go to Israel where they attack Israel communities, and to shut down the rocket attacks. But by doing that, sometimes it's like kind of taking a tank and going into a china shop. They're killing hundreds and hundreds of Palestinian civilians. Today, they hit a UN refugee school. Of course, Israel is saying that Hamas rockets did it, but it looks like the Israelis might have maybe accidentally hit a refugee school, and there's hundreds dead, and their children, and it's terrible. Let's take a look at the current situation in terms of why Israel went in this time. So third time's a charm. This mowing the grass strategy has occurred now 3 times. The first time was in 2008. Cast lead where the Israelis went in when Hamas took over and tried to root out the rockets in the tunnels. In 2012, they came back with a pillar of defense. They were being attacked by rockets. There was a small peacetime in 2011, and then in 2012 the rockets came again, and the Israelis went in, and civilians died, and they went in, but they got rid of the rockets supposedly, and they got rid of the tunnels, and then the grass kept growing because it doesn't take much. June 12th is when kind of the current mess occurred. On June 12th in the West Bank, not the Gaza Strip, 3 teenagers, Jewish teenagers, Israeli citizens, were kidnapped. They were kidnapped and their bodies are going to be found a couple weeks later, and everybody in Israel is blaming Hamas. Hamas claims that they didn't do it. Maybe it was some renegades from Hamas that did it. Maybe they did do it. But either way, when these 3 Jewish kids were found, Israel blew up. Their leader, Benjamin Netanyahu, who's already kind of a war hawk and a right-winger, is going to make no bones about it. There's going to be retaliation. There's going to be hell to pay. They're going to find the people who did this. So they go in. They go into the Gaza Strip and they arrest hundreds and hundreds of people. They go in and they knock buildings down. They knock houses down. They're doing it to catch the killers, but by doing it, they're killing innocent people and they're locking up innocent people as well. There's retaliation. There's a few days later, after the bodies were found, there was a young Palestinian boy who was kidnapped by some Jewish guys, and they burned him alive. So because of that, Hamas blows up and the rockets start going even farther and farther. Now there is a dome in Israel, so the rockets really have minimal effect. But really, that's, a cue to the Israelis that the grass has grown too high. On July 5th, a video was released of one of the cousins of the boy that was burned alive, who was arrested by the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, of being tortured. And really, this is going to cause Hamas to blow up. On July 8th, Hamas announces it's going to start attacking, and they start flying the rockets over the border. And now the Israelis attack with, iron fists, and eventually a ground assault. And now, they're going in with a heavy hand, man. So I don't even know what to say anymore. I know I've skipped a million things. I know incidences and names and years, and there's just too much to go over in one video. But I think that we got the basics down. Who's right and who's wrong, I don't know. Maybe you do. Maybe everybody's right and everybody's wrong. But either way, it's going to be a hard door to unlock, that's for sure. So what do you think? You got to leave it down below. You got to tell me where I went wrong, maybe what I did right, and what we should do next as humans. So giddy up for that. If you haven't checked it out, tons of world history videos, United States history videos, videos that are cray-cray, and videos that are for you. So that's it, guys. I'm HipHughes. Where attention goes, energy flows. I have one more thing to say.
Subscribe or die trying.